Tron looked like a vision of the future, but behind the neon shine was rejection, confusion, and a battle no one expected. Studios laughed at the pitch, critics called it strange, and even Disney doubted the experiment. Yet from that chaos, a digital legend emerged. Today, we're diving into 13 weird and fascinating facts that reveal how this impossible movie broke rules long before anyone realized its impact. Fact 1. Pong sparked the whole concept. When Steven Lisberger first watched Pong, he didn't see a simple game bouncing across an arcade screen. He saw a doorway. That tiny white square, drifting back and forth between two basic paddles, felt like a signal from another world, like something was happening behind the glass that players couldn't see. Instead of treating it as a toy, Liesberger imagined an entire civilization humming beneath the pixels, a place where programs weren't just lines of code but living entities fighting for survival. This idea consumed him. He flooded his studio with neon artwork, sketched glowing warriors, and built a mythology around the question, what if the world inside the computer was bigger than the one outside? Pong wasn't just inspiration. It was the spark that pushed Liesberger to fuse technology with storytelling in a way no filmmaker had attempted, transforming a simple arcade game into the seed of a cinematic universe. Fact 2. Tron was originally imagined as a full animated film. Before the glowing suits, live-action frames, and experimental hybrid visuals, Tron existed only as a wild animated dream. Steven Lisberger didn't picture actors standing on dark sound stages or cameras capturing models lit with fiber optics. Instead, he saw a feature-length cartoon, something closer to a neon-soaked fantasia than a sci-fi blockbuster. Early concept reels showed digital warriors drawn like Saturday morning heroes, leaping through hand-painted landscapes instead of computer-generated grids. The entire world pulsed with bright colors and stylized motion, far removed from traditional animation, but still anchored to handcrafted art. Disney was intrigued but quickly realized animation alone couldn't capture the futuristic punch the idea demanded. So they pushed for something bolder, a fusion of human performances, practical sets, traditional animation, and pioneering computer graphics. That decision transformed Tron from a quirky cartoon into a cinematic experiment unlike anything that existed at the time, creating a visual identity that felt both handmade and impossibly advanced. Fact 3. Hollywood mocked the idea before Disney took the gamble. When Steven Lisberger carried his Tron pitch into Hollywood, he expected curiosity, maybe even excitement. Instead, he walked straight into disbelief. Studios like Warner Brothers, MGM, and Columbia didn't just decline the project. Some executives openly laughed at the concept of people being pulled into a computer world. In 1982, video games were seen as noisy distractions for kids, not the foundation for a major film. The idea of building a story around circuits, programs, and digital arenas felt absurd to industry veterans who still treated computers as niche machines. But Disney was facing a creative crisis and desperately needed something fresh. They took the risk others mocked, gambling millions on a director with no blockbuster experience and a vision no one understood. Tron didn't dominate the box office that year, but the decision proved historic. What Hollywood dismissed as a bizarre experiment became one of the earliest steps toward integrating CGI into mainstream filmmaking. Fact 4. Peter O'Toole nearly became the face of the grid. Before Jeff Bridges locked in the role of Flynn, and before Bruce Boxleitner suited up as Tron, the casting process took a bizarre detour. Disney initially approached Peter O'Toole, yes, the legendary actor from Lawrence of Arabia, to play the cold corporate villain, Dillinger. But O'Toole surprised everyone when he rejected the villain role and asked to play Tron instead. Executives froze. They admired his talent but doubted audiences would accept a dramatic icon suddenly transformed into a glowing digital warrior. The studio worried the contrast would feel distracting or unintentionally comedic, especially in a film already pushing experimental visuals. Ultimately, they passed, handing Dillinger and Sark to David Warner, whose controlled menace ended up shaping the film's tone. Meanwhile, Jeff Bridges brought a rebellious charm to Flynn, grounding the movie's chaos. In another timeline, Tron might have starred a cinema legend clad in luminous armor, but in this one, the grid formed around a cast that felt unpredictable, yet perfectly aligned with the film's strange energy. Fact 5. The movie isn't really about Tron, and that confused everyone. For a film boldly titled Tron, audiences expected the character himself to be the center of the story. Instead, the narrative revolves around Kevin Flynn, Jeff Bridges' rebellious programmer fighting to reclaim his stolen work. Tron, played by Bruce Boxleitner, delivers some of the movie's flashiest moments, from disc combat to the iconic light cycle battles. Yet he isn't the one driving the emotional core. When the final showdown arrives, it's Flynn, not Tron, who makes the ultimate sacrifice against the Master Control program. This left many viewers puzzled at the time, wondering why the film carried the name of a character who wasn't the primary hero. Disney never officially explained the choice, but the irony only strengthened Tron's mystique. In a story built around identity, systems, and the fight for recognition, the title belongs to the program who shines the brightest visually, even if he doesn't anchor the plot. That contrast helped shape the film's cult legacy. Fact 6. The identity discs only exist because Lisberger banned guns. One of the most iconic elements of Tron, the glowing identity discs, started as a simple rule from Steven Lisberger. Absolutely no guns in the grid. He felt Hollywood was already saturated with blasters, lasers, and shootouts, and he didn't want kids leaving the theater pretending to fire weapons. Instead, he searched for something physical, dynamic, and visually unique. The solution came from an unexpected place: Frisbees. Lisberger loved the clean, circular motion and imagined a digital world where every program carried its own spinning symbol of identity and memory. That idea reshaped the film's action sequences, transforming what could have been typical sci-fi gunfights into acrobatic duels of light and motion. The discs became more than weapons. They became extensions of each character, storing their essence while serving as their primary defense. What began as a safety-conscious decision ended up defining the entire aesthetic of the grid and leaving fans with one of sci-fi's most recognizable weapons. Fact 7. Yori broke early sci-fi norms in ways many viewers missed. In the early 80s, blockbuster sci-fi films rarely gave women meaningful roles. Most were sidelined as assistants, love interests, or background figures. But in Tron, Cindy Morgan's Yori quietly challenged that pattern. Her character wasn't written to be a passive observer. She was part of the mission, navigating the grid alongside Flynn and Tron, executing plans and contributing to each escape and breakthrough. Still, Morgan pushed even further during production. She advocated for Yori to show more agency, insisting the character should solve problems, operate systems, and match the intelligence of the male leads. Her performance added a layer of balance to a world otherwise dominated by digital warriors and authoritarian programs. While Yori wasn't presented as an action hero, she represented a rare moment of progress during an era when women in sci-fi were often overlooked. Over time, fans came to appreciate how her presence expanded the dynamics of the grid and hinted at stronger female characters to come. Fact 8. Disney's own animators boycotted Tron before it even started. Long before a single frame of Tron was shot, the project caused an internal rebellion inside Disney. The studio's veteran animators, many of whom had shaped classics like Snow White and Cinderella, looked at Steven Lisberger's plan to use computers and saw a direct threat to their craft. To them, pixels weren't tools, they were replacements waiting to happen. Some refused to join the production entirely, believing computer graphics would make traditional animation obsolete. Instead of backing down, Lisberger recruited outside creatives who weren't afraid of experimentation. Among them were futurist designer Sid Mead and French comic book legend Mobius, whose bold, otherworldly style reshaped the grid into something mythic. Their outsider perspective brought a fresh aesthetic that clashed with Disney tradition, but ultimately defined the film's identity. Ironically, the rejection from Disney's own artists opened the door for visionaries who transformed Tron into a digital dreamscape decades ahead of its time. The film's look exists precisely because the old guard walked away. Fact 9. Part of the Tron script was written on one of the first personal computers. Before laptops and digital drafts became standard in Hollywood, Tron quietly made history behind the scenes. Co-writer Bonnie McBird wasn't just interested in storytelling, she was fascinated by early computing. Years earlier, she had experimented with punched cards and primitive programs, so when she began writing Tron, she wanted the script itself to reflect the movie's futuristic spirit. Through a rare connection to Xerox PARC, the legendary lab responsible for inventing the graphical interface, McBird gained access to the Alto computer, one of the world's earliest personal machines. Using an acoustic coupler, she transmitted pages to PARC and revised them directly on the Alto, a process unheard of in Hollywood at the time. To avoid alarming executives who feared technology, she printed the pages in a typewriter-style font so no one would realize they'd been digitally written. Without fanfare, Tron became one of the first major Hollywood screenplays drafted on a computer, mirroring the digital world it aimed to create. Fact 10. Tron's soundtrack was a digital ghost unlike anything before it. The sonic identity of Tron came from Wendy Carlos, a pioneering composer who had already pushed electronic music into the mainstream with A Clockwork Orange and The Shining. For Tron, she fused chilly analog synthesizers with sweeping orchestral arrangements, creating a world that sounded mechanical and human at the same time. Some cues hummed like circuitry, whispering in the dark, while others rose like a digital cathedral echoing across the grid. In 1982, audiences didn't know what to make of it. This wasn't a traditional Hollywood score, nor was it pure electronic experimentation. It existed in a strange, haunted space between the two. Carlos's work gave the film an atmosphere that felt alive, as if the music itself were a program moving through the system. Decades later, the soundtrack remains one of the most distinctive blends of electronic and classical composition ever created, a bold experiment that helped define the film's mythic tone. Fact 11. Pac-Man secretly hid inside the grid, and most viewers missed it. At the height of the arcade boom in 1982, Pac-Man wasn't just a game. He was a cultural phenomenon. Kids wore him on shirts, watched him on TV, and lined up with pockets full of quarters just to hear that familiar Waka Waka. So when the creators of Tron built their digital universe, they slipped in a clever tribute. During a scene inside Sark's command center, a monitor displays tactical data, yet tucked in the corner is a tiny, fully animated Pac-Man sprite chomping away at dots as if lost inside the grid. It wasn't a glitch or a random graphic. It was an intentional Easter egg meant to acknowledge the explosion of video game culture that inspired the film in the first place. Most audiences didn't notice it during theatrical screenings, but once home video arrived, fans began discovering and rewinding the moment repeatedly. Today, that brief cameo is considered one of the most charming and iconic hidden details in early sci-fi cinema. Fact 12. Disneyland's first Tron attraction arrived the same year as the film. Long before sleek motorbike coasters and high-tech show buildings, Tron made its theme park debut in the most unexpected place, the humble people mover at Disneyland. In 1982, the ride quietly added a new segment called The World of Tron, transforming a slow-moving tour through Tomorrowland into a neon surprise. Guests drifted into what looked like an ordinary tunnel before the atmosphere abruptly shifted. The calm narration vanished, replaced by a cold, digitized voice declaring that riders had entered the Master Control Program's domain. Suddenly, glowing light cycles raced across the walls, leaving streaks of color that made the tunnel feel alive. For many kids, it was their first time seeing the grid in motion outside the big screen. Though primitive compared to modern attractions, the effect was startling enough to stick in people's memories for decades. It proved that Tron's world was immersive long before immersive rides became the norm. Fact 13. Bruce Boxleitner became a TV star right after Tron, and fans were shocked. For many young viewers in 1982, Bruce Boxleitner was forever stamped in their minds as the heroic program Tron, the glowing defender of the grid. But barely a year after the film's release, he appeared somewhere completely different: primetime television. In 1983, Boxleitner took the lead role in Scarecrow and Mrs. King, playing secret agent Lee Scarecrow Stetson in a Cold War-tinged espionage series. The shift stunned fans who had just seen him hurling identity discs and battling digital tyrants. Suddenly, the luminous warrior of the computer world was wearing trench coats, chasing informants, and navigating political intrigue. For kids who had memorized every frame of Tron, it felt surreal, as if their digital hero had stepped out of the grid and into the real world. The show became a hit and ran for 4 seasons, proving that Boxleitner wasn't confined to neon armor. His unexpected career pivot helped cement his status not just as Tron, but as a versatile actor capable of jumping between universes. Tron began as a strange experiment no one believed in, but its legacy outgrew every doubt. What once seemed confusing, risky, or too futuristic ended up reshaping how movies, games, and digital worlds are imagined. These 13 unusual facts show how a misunderstood film quietly rewired pop culture. Decades later, the grid still pulses, reminding us that bold ideas often shine brightest long after the world catches up.